They told me not to move, not to speak, not to even blink too hard. My chest was full of tubes, my throat dry from intubation, and my wrists were strapped down because I had tried, twice, to rip everything out. I didn't care. If I had to wake up one more time to the echo of her laugh through a phone screen, I might do it again. Susan hadn't missed a single day. Not to see me, but to see the camera. On day 1, she posted a reel outside the ICU door, whispering through fake tears. "My fiancé's in critical care," she told her followers. "We just need prayers right now." On day 2, she recorded herself arranging flowers I couldn't smell, captioned it, "Love is patient." Day 3, she posed next to my motionless body, smiling as if she were the one recovering. Day 4, she wore white, a dress I had never seen before, and stood near the window, pretending it was her wedding day. That was the moment something snapped in me. I was still inside this shell, yes, still healing from the collapse, still recovering from the hours I spent coding on the operating table, but something in me had stood up, and it was done, waiting. Maria noticed first. She was the only one who talked to me like I was alive. "You're back," she whispered that morning, her fingers adjusting the oxygen line with extra care. "Your eyes, they're not drifting anymore." I blinked slowly. That was all I could do. She smiled. "You're here, Harry. You're really here." I wanted to tell her I never left, that the only thing worse than dying was being half dead, watching the person you loved pretend you were a prop in her story. By day 5, Susan arrived in full makeup. She breezed into the room, ignoring the chart at the foot of my bed, dragging a ring light behind her and propping her phone on the IV stand. "Day 5 of waiting for my miracle," she said to the camera, doing a slow pan across my face. "He squeezed my hand last night. Maybe it's working. Keep sending love." I hadn't squeezed anything. I had spasmed. She turned to the nurse. "Can you step out for a second? I just want to talk to my audience alone." Maria didn't move. "This is an ICU, not your set." Susan glanced at her badge. "Maria, right? You're not going to cause problems, are you?" Maria didn't answer. She walked over to my side and picked up my chart, flipping through it like nothing was wrong. But I saw the way her jaw locked. Susan sighed and refocused her energy on the phone. "Sorry guys, sometimes nurses forget who the real support system is." I wanted to scream. Not because of the arrogance, but because Susan hadn't looked at me once, not like someone worried, not like someone heartbroken, just like someone building a brand. And then came the words that made the blood in my body boil again, no matter how weak I was. "I'm going to be launching a line of wellness candles soon," Susan said to the stream, smiling as she gently touched my hand. "All inspired by love, healing, and waiting. This one's called ICU. Get it?" Maria dropped the chart. The clatter made Susan jump. "Oops," Maria said softly, stooping to pick it up. Susan huffed. "Are you seriously going to stand there and—" She was interrupted by the sound of wheels rolling across the tile. Maria had retrieved a file from the drawer near the supply cabinet and was now pushing a small table toward my bedside. On it was a folder. Susan laughed, nervous. "What's that?" Maria placed the folder beside me. "Divorce papers, signed, by him." Susan froze. "You thought he didn't remember," Maria said calmly. "But he woke up yesterday, fully, and his first request wasn't painkillers or water, it was a legal closure." "That's not possible. He... Susan stammered, her face draining of color. "He remembers everything," Maria said, stepping back. "Including Ho. You brought Daniel to the ICU hallway last night. I had seen him, through the crack in the door, the man Susan used to call just a family friend. He was holding a bouquet, laughing, whispering into her hair while I fought to breathe 10 feet away." Susan's lips trembled. "You can't do this, Harry. Not now, not while you're still healing." I blinked once. Maria smiled. "I think that's a yes." Susan's phone was still recording, her whole charade, her lies, her candle pitch. Maria reached over, ended the live stream, and set the phone down face down beside the untouched flowers. Then she placed a pen next to the divorce folder. "Time to let go, Susan. They say trauma rewrites a man. I don't know if that's true, but lying still for 15 days, hearing your own heartbeat tick louder than voices outside, it does something to you. It makes you trace every road that brought you here, every crack in the foundation, every smile that was a signal you missed." My name is Harry. I am 33 years old, associate data scientist at an AI firm, son of a retired schoolteacher and a quiet father who never liked speaking unless absolutely necessary. I'm not what you'd call brave. I don't start fights. I don't shout in rooms. I've always been that guy who waits, watches, think a little too long before replying. Susan called that patience. You're so calm, she used to say, fingers brushing over mine on cafe tables, like you've already figured everything out. I hadn't. But I liked that she thought I had, that someone so electric, so vivid, saw something in me. From the first day we met, she walked like every room belonged to her and smiled like everyone should already know her name. And mostly, they did. We were introduced to a company mixer. I wasn't even supposed to be there. My department rarely mingled with hers. She worked in marketing, a totally different floor. My manager pushed me to attend because I'd skipped the last twirlu. Oh, and in his words, I needed more exposure to humans. So I went. And there she was. Laughing at a joke too far across the room to hear, red nails curled around a glass of sparkling wine, eyes already searching for the next target. When she caught me watching, I looked away too slowly. She came over. That was her style. You're too dressed for this party, she said. Let me guess, tech? Data, I replied. Same thing. That night, I learned she hated bland colors but wore beige when she had to look serious. She once went viral for reviewing face serums in a fake British accent. She loved the idea of being adored but feared being alone. She hadn't spoken to her dad in 6 years but still used his last name. I told her I liked silence. She kissed me in the elevator. The relationship moved fast, not because I was rushing, but because Susan never slowed down. By the 2nd month, we were living together. By the 6th, we were planning a destination engagement shoot. She'd already drawn up mood boards, tagged locations, booked 2 separate stylists. I didn't push back. I never pushed back. That's who I was. I let her take the lead. I told myself that's what love was, letting her feel in control because she was scared of anything that made her feel small, but it started changing after the proposals. Yes, plural. She proposed first, on camera. We were in Seoul, under cherry blossoms. A stranger held her phone as she bent to one knee with a vintage box. My face was blank, not because I didn't love her, but because I didn't expect it. The internet called it romantic and modern. I saw confusion in my own eyes when the clip went viral. Weeks later, I proposed again. Just us, no phone, no lights, just me, her, and a quiet hotel room in Jeju. She said yes again, but her expression was different, like the moment didn't matter as much unless someone else could see it. I noticed the shift after that. Our dinners were live-streamed. Our Sunday walks became photo ops. She'd schedule impromptu dates and ask me to wear more color. You're too grayscale, she'd tease. People think you're my security guard. I didn't mind the teasing, but the pressure wore me down. The night before I collapsed, we had a fight. A quiet one. I had been working late. Maria had texted earlier that day, a nurse from my father's old hospital. We'd kept in touch occasionally. She knew about my sleep irregularities, the dizziness, the headaches I pretended not to have. She warned me to get checked. I told her I was fine. That night, Susan came home in full glam, said we had a shoot scheduled. I told her I couldn't do it. She said, "You never want to show up for us." I didn't reply. She left. And 10 minutes later, I hit the floor. Maria said I was unconscious before I even hit the ground. She was on call when the ambulance brought me in. The irony wasn't lost on me, how the one person Susan resented most ended up saving me. They had met once, at my father's funeral. Susan noticed how Maria looked at me. "You two have history?" she asked later. No, I had answered, but she didn't believe me, and the truth is, maybe it was more complicated than I admitted. Maria and I were never romantically involved. There was a steadiness to her that felt like air after being underwater too long. She didn't demand it, she didn't perform. She listened in ways I didn't even know I was speaking. We met through my father. She was a nurse intern at the time, barely 23, shy but sharp. He liked her. Said she had gentle hands. After he passed, she sent me the last note he scribbled. "Be brave, Harry. Be your own man. I didn't reply to her message, but I saved the note. Susan found it months later. Why didn't you tell me about this girl? She asked. She's just someone who was kind to him. She texts like she was kind to you. I didn't fight back. That was the pattern, but Daniel, he was different. Daniel was loud, polished, and always half an inch too close. He worked in Susan's influencer management firm. They collaborated on brand pitches. He called her Suze, laughed too hard at her jokes. Once called me Harold at a party, then laughed when I corrected him. Susan said I was being sensitive, that Daniel was harmless. Then why was he at the ICU hallway on day 4? Why was he holding flowers meant for her, standing so casually while I lay suspended between breath and breakdown? Maria saw him. She didn't say anything in front of Susan, but later, when we were alone, just her, me, and the quiet beep of the monitor, she whispered, "If you want to press charges for medical negligence, I'll support you." I blinked twice. I wanted to laugh, but I couldn't move my mouth. It wasn't negligence, it was betrayal. That hurt worse. When Maria wheeled in the divorce folder, it wasn't just legal paperwork. It was proof that I had finally chosen myself. For the first time in 33 years, I wasn't waiting for someone else to make the choice for me. Susan tried to stop it with words, with tears, with old photos. "You can't mean this," she said. "We're a brand, people look up to us." But I wasn't her brand, I was her backdrop. Maria handed me the pen that afternoon, and even though my fingers still trembled, I signed my name. Harry Langston, in crooked, tired strokes. And for the first time in years, I felt whole again. I didn't want revenge, I just wanted peace. That's what I kept telling myself the week after I signed the divorce papers. I was still in the hospital, barely able to sit upright without my head spinning, but Susan hadn't stopped showing up. Not out of guilt, not out of love, out of fear, not fear of losing me, fear of losing the narrative. The divorce papers weren't private, they couldn't be. Not with the number of people she had invited into our lives through a lens. Her audience noticed immediately. The ring was gone, the bedside reels stopped. A rumor began on a gossip forum: Susan Koo's ICU fiancé dumps her during recovery. She posted a photo of us holding hands, except it was from months ago. The caption was vague: "We're healing in our own ways." She wasn't talking about me. The next day, Daniel released a video on his own channel. A calm-toned, soft-light explanation clip. He sat on a couch, dressed in neutral tones, pretending vulnerability like it was a marketable brand. "There's been so much speculation," he began, "and while it's not our job to clarify private matters, I just want to say that people make mistakes, and no one is perfect." The camera zoomed slightly into his face. But love, real love, is messy. And sometimes, when we're trying to hold someone else together, we forget to look after ourselves. No names, no details. But everyone knew what it was about. The comments poured in. "Susan deserves better. Harry was too quiet anyway. She needs someone who can handle her shine." I read the vote. I'm on the hospital bed, my phone shaking in my hands. Maria took it away from me. "You're supposed to be resting," she said gently. "They're rewriting everything," I whispered. "Let them." I looked at her. "Doesn't it matter?" She didn't answer. She just sat beside me, folded a blanket over my legs, and handed me water like I hadn't just been turned into a villain by people who had never met me. But it did matter. It mattered because Susan was already scheduling new brand deals, solo ones. It mattered because Daniel had started appearing in clips from Susan's apartment, casually holding mugs that used to be mine. It mattered because my silence was being interpreted as consent. I wasn't healing in private, I was bleeding in public. And no one cared, Maria did. She visited even on days she wasn't assigned to me. Sometimes she brought books, sometimes just her presence. She never tried to offer comfort through pity, only reality. "You don't need to fight them to win," she said. "You just need to stop letting them take it." But how do you stop someone who's already taken the narrative, the ring, the face the world sees when they think of love? One morning, 3 weeks after my collapse, Maria found me sitting on the floor in the corridor outside my room. I had tried to walk to the vending machine, didn't make it. My legs gave out halfway. "You should have called me," she said, crouching beside me. I thought I could stand. Maybe you can, she said, helping me up. Just not yet. Not yet. That became my mantra. The hospital released me 7 days later. I didn't tell Susan, I didn't tell anyone, I just left. Quietly, through the side door, no cameras, no speeches. Maria offered me a ride, but I declined. I need to walk, I said. She nodded, no questions. I ended up back at the apartment we once shared. The door code hadn't been changed. Inside, it looked like a showroom. Almost nothing of mine remained, except the couch, the one I'd bought after we moved in, the one she said didn't match the aesthetic. It had been pushed to the corner, like an unwanted guest. There was a note on the counter, not handwritten, printed, cold. Harry, I've left most of your documents and clothes in the guest room closet. The furniture is staying with me since the lease is in my name. Daniel will be by next week to collect a few things. Please coordinate with him directly. Susan. I didn't tear the note. I folded it carefully and placed it inside my wallet. Not out of sentimentality, but as a reminder. This was real. This happened. And no matter what she posted online, this was the version that never made it to Reels. That night I booked a temporary rental. 1 bedroom, no decorations. Just clean walls and silence. It felt like a hotel room. But it was mine. Maria visited once. She brought soup. You're doing better, she said, surveying the space, even without a dining table. I smiled faintly. I eat on the floor, like a monk. She chuckled and sat beside me. For 20 minutes, we didn't talk, just sat, just breathed. Then she said, "You never told me what happened before the collapse." I didn't want to. But I did. I told her about the fight, about the missed shoot, about how Susan said I wasn't showing up for her, about the guilt that wrapped around my chest tighter than the tubes had. About the final moment, before everything went black, where I looked up at the ceiling and wondered if she'd even cry. She did cry, Maria said. On stream? Eventually. I nodded. That counts. Weeks passed. My strength returned. Physically, I was recovering fast, emotionally, slower. Every time I picked up my phone, I hesitated before opening the apps. Every time I passed someone on the street, I wondered if they knew who I was, if they recognized me as the man who was dumped in a hospital bed. But Susan wasn't finished. She posted a new video. A reflection series. Soft piano in the background, close-up angles, dimmed lighting. I've made mistakes, she said, eyes glistening. But I never stopped loving him. Not even now. I watched it twice. Then I saw the comments. Wow, she's so honest. She deserves another chance. Maybe he'll see this and go back. The next day, she sent me a text. Can we meet? I didn't answer. So she sent another. I'm outside. I looked through the peephole. She stood in the hallway, no makeup, just a hoodie and jeans, the most un-Susan version of her I'd ever seen. I opened the door a crack. She didn't speak, just handed me an envelope. Inside was a printed transcript of a podcast, one I'd never heard, but in it, Daniel spoke about regret, about choosing the wrong person, about building something fake because it looked good on camera. I looked up at her. He dumped you? I asked. She nodded. For clout? More or less. I sighed. Why are you here, Susan? Because I was wrong, and because I don't have anyone left who tells me the truth. I stepped back. Not to invite her in, to close the door. You still don't, I said softly. But now I do. She flinched. The door shut between us. And for the first time, the silence didn't feel empty, it felt earned. Sometimes the mind recovers slower than the body. I was walking again, talking again, eating solid food. But I still hesitated when I passed a mirror. I didn't trust the man who looked back. He looked stronger, sharper. But I remembered what it felt like to be helpless. I remembered the way Susan stepped over that helplessness, camera in hand, and turned it into content. And still, some nights, I missed her. It made me feel ashamed. The emotional part wasn't as clean as the signature on the divorce papers. It lingered. In scent, when I passed someone wearing her perfume. In music, when the playlist she built for our road trips shuffled onto a random cafe speaker. In sensation, when I rolled over in bed and reached for a space no longer occupied. I wanted to forget, but my body remembered. Maria noticed. She always noticed. "You're quieter this week," she said once, pushing a grocery bag into my arms. "Did she contact you again?" "No." "But you saw something." I nodded. "She went live again, just a cooking demo, but the background, she was wearing the shirt I left behind." Maria didn't roll her eyes, didn't mock me, she just stood there, in the hallway of my rental apartment, holding one bag while I held the other. "Want to come in?" She nodded. We cooked in silence. I wasn't good at small talk, never had been, but with Maria, the silence didn't demand noise. It just existed. I liked that. I needed that. "Do you ever feel like you're healing in the wrong direction?" I asked suddenly. She paused while chopping onions. "What do you mean?" "Like, I'm moving forward, but everything in me still faces back. Like part of me is always looking over its shoulder." Maria set down the knife. "You're not wrong. Healing isn't a straight line, it's a spiral. Some days you'll feel like you're back where you started. Doesn't mean you are." I wanted to believe her. But that night, Susan called again, blocked number. I knew it was her the moment I heard the breath, the hesitation. "Harry." "Wrong number," I said. "Please don't hang up." I didn't. Because the part of me that still wanted closure, a better version of goodbye, had taken over. "I'm not asking to come back," Susan whispered. "I know I don't deserve that, but I just want to explain." "Explain what? That you saw me drowning and used it for likes?" "No," she said, voice cracking, "that I didn't know how to handle watching you fade. I panicked, and I performed." "Same thing." Silence stretched between us. Then she said, "I haven't slept properly since you left. I keep thinking of the night I made you feel like a burden." I didn't tell her she'd made me feel like that more than once. "You could have just said sorry," I said. "You didn't have to record your guilt." She let out a breath. "I wanted to do both." Then, more quietly, "Do you love her?" It took me a moment. "Maria?" "Yes." "I trust her," I said. "That's more than I ever had with you." Susan didn't cry. I thought she might, but she didn't. "I guess that's what hurts the most," she said. "That someone else gave you what I couldn't." The call ended. I stared at the ceiling for a long time after that. Maria didn't ask about it the next day, but she saw the shift in my face. "You still feel responsible for her feelings," she said as we walked through a snowy park. "You think if you let go completely, she'll fall apart." "She might. And that's not your problem." It sounded cruel. But it was the first time someone gave me permission to stop carrying Susan like she was mine to fix. Still, it wasn't over. A week later, I got an email from a production company. They wanted to buy rights to my story, or rather, to our story. The ICU, the ring, the betrayal, the live videos. It had gone viral enough in the right circles to interest a writer's room. I deleted the message. But the thought stayed. What if the only way to reclaim my truth was to tell it publicly? Maria said nothing when I brought it up. Instead, she showed me a photo. It was me, on my hospital bed, eyes just barely open. She had taken it to show the attending physician the progress. She never posted it, never shared it, I just kept it. "Your story isn't content," she said. "It's a memory, make sure it stays that way." I nodded. Then I went home and printed the email anyway. Not because I wanted to sell it, because I needed to remember that I still had a choice. The days blurred into something quieter, lighter. I stopped checking Susan's pages. I stopped responding to Daniel. His passive-aggressive mentions, I blocked them both. And for the first time in months, my body started sleeping through the night. Then Maria got reassigned. She didn't tell me until the day before she was leaving. "A different department needs me," she said, trying to keep it casual. "It's not far, just not here." I didn't realize how tightly I gripped the idea of her until that moment. "When?" "Tomorrow." I wanted to ask her to stay, to say something selfish, but I didn't. I just nodded. That night, she left a small note outside my door. Harry, you don't owe anyone a version of yourself that makes them feel better about who they are. Be exactly who you are, even if it's quiet. Especially then. Maria. I folded it into my wallet next to Susan's printed note, not as a comparison, but as a closure. The next day, it snowed again. I walked past a bookstore window and saw a copy of a memoir called The Quiet One. The author's name was unfamiliar, but the blurb hit too close. A man wakes from a coma to find his life rewritten without his consent. He begins again, with nothing but his silence as his shield. I walked in and bought it. Not for research, for recognition. Somewhere, someone else knew what this felt like. Later that week, I was invited to speak at a tech conference. I almost declined. I hadn't spoken publicly since everything collapsed. But something in me said yes. At the end of the keynote, a young woman raised her hand. "You're Harry Langston, right? The Harry from—" "Yes," I interrupted gently. "That's me." She blushed. "I just wanted to say your story really affected me." I nodded. "Thank you." I walked off stage and exhaled. Not because I was nervous. Because it didn't hurt anymore. Not like it used to. That night, I opened a blank document and titled it, ICU, a love story I survived. I didn't write anything else. Not yet. But I would. It had been 3 months since the divorce, 2 since Maria was reassigned. 1 since I had last heard Susan's voice. I told myself that was enough time, that I had crossed the worst of it. I have started writing again. I'd built a daily routine. I even started smiling at strangers, something I never used to do. And then Maria stopped replying. No warning, no explanation, just silence. I waited 3 days before assuming the worst. Not that she was hurt, but that I had done something wrong. I scrolled through our old texts. Had I said too little, too much? Had I taken her comfort for granted? On the 4th day, I called the hospital. "She's not with us anymore," the front desk replied. "What do you mean?" "She transferred. Different city, full relocation. No number, no forwarding, just gone." I sat down in the middle of my living room. The soup pot on the stove hissed and boiled over. I didn't move. Another woman had left. Another goodbye without closure. I didn't want to believe it was intentional. I didn't want to think that Maria, the only person who treated me like a person instead of a project, had ghosted me, but the silence had weight, heavy, final. It triggered something I had buried. I reopened Susan's last message. "I never stopped loving you, I just didn't know how." I didn't reply, but this time, I didn't delete it either. That weekend, I walked past the university library and saw a poster on the window. Panel, Digital Ethics, Influence and Responsibility. Among the guest names, I saw one that made me stop breathing. Susan Koo, brand strategist author, Healing Out Loud. She had published a book, and she was speaking on a panel about ethics. I didn't know whether to laugh or tear the sign off the glass. I did neither. I went home and searched for it. The book had a pink cover, a blurred silhouette of a couple on the front. The subtitle made my fingers twitch. How I Lost Him, Found Myself, and Learned to Love in the Spotlight. Her name was all over the interviews. Radio, podcasts, a televised morning show. She told every host the same thing, that love was real, pain was real, and sometimes you make mistakes that cost you your whole future. She never used my name, but she never had to. Everyone knew. I attended the panel, sat in the back row. She was the same in person as she was on camera, composed, graceful, dressed in neutral tones to signal depth. She spoke about accountability like she'd invented the word. She cried when someone asked about him, and I realized something. She wasn't sorry. She was polished, repackaged, marketed again, just like before, but this time as the victim of her own story. When the Q&A began, I stood. The moderator pointed toward me. "You, back there." I didn't raise my voice. "Do you believe people should profit from the pain they caused others?" The room went silent. Susan looked directly at me. And for a moment, I saw the old version of her, the one without filters, without a story to sell. Just Susan, eyes sharp, back straight, defensive by default. I believe people should be allowed to share what they survived, she said, even if they weren't perfect along the way. And what if someone else had to carry the cost of that survival? I carried my own cost, she snapped, and maybe if you ever truly loved someone, you'd understand. I didn't speak again. I just sat back down. She knew it was me. I walked out before the session ended. Outside, the wind cut across my face like winter had returned early. I stood near the exit for 10 minutes, unsure why I hadn't left yet. Then a voice behind me said, "That was brave." I turned. It wasn't Maria. It was Daniel. He was dressed down, black hoodie, worn jeans, no entourage, just him. "Brave," I echoed. "You'd know all about that." "I didn't come to fight." "Then why are you here?" "She told me you might come," said if you did, she wouldn't speak to you, not directly. I frowned. "She looked right at me." "She looked through you," he corrected. "There's a difference." I hated that he was right. He handed me a folded piece of paper. "She asked me to give you this months ago. I didn't. I thought she'd change, thought maybe you'd both circle back, but you didn't, and now it's too late." I opened it after he walked away. It was a receipt for a flight. Maria's name. Departure. Same week she stopped replying. Destination, a small city 2 hours north, a hospital ID number scribbled in the corner. I didn't think so, I just went. The hospital lobby smelled like disinfectant and stress. The receptionist looked up as I entered. "I'm looking for someone, Maria, she transferred here, nurse." She paused, checked something, then nodded. "She's not on duty today, but she's usually here on Mondays." "What about her file? Did she request confidentiality?" The woman hesitated. "She didn't say anything, she just left quietly, but she's still working, still here." I waited outside the staff entrance the following Monday. She arrived at 7:12 a.m., hair tied back, no makeup, same black coat she always wore when the weather dropped. She froze when she saw me. I didn't move. Maria stepped forward slowly. "How did you find me?" "Your name, your flight, a scribbled code." She looked down, then said, "I didn't mean to disappear." "Then why did you?" "Because I thought you were ready to live without me, and I didn't want to be the reason you held back." "You weren't." "I was scared," she admitted. "That if I stayed, you'd confuse gratitude with love." I exhaled. "And if I do love you?" She blinked. "Then we talk," she whispered. "Without the hospital, without the past, just us." I nodded. The clouds broke overhead. For the first time in months, the sun touched my skin and didn't burn. We met again that evening, neutral ground, a small cafe between her hospital and my apartment. Nothing branded, no ring lights, just 2 chipped mugs and a silent radio humming something soft in the background. Maria arrived first. She always arrived early. She had changed out of her scrubs, but still looked tired. There were circles under her eyes that hadn't been there before. Not from regret, but from work, from weight. She carried her own exhaustion like a scarf, wrapped, managed, ignored. "You look the same," she said when I walked in. "You look real," I said. She smiled. We sat, no performance, no greeting rituals, just sat. For 10 minutes, we didn't speak. It was the best part of the day. "I lied to you once," she said eventually. I looked up. That day in the hallway, when I said I wasn't hurt by the Susan stuff, I was. I still am, because I watched you go through it all, and I kept wishing you'd break, not because I wanted you to suffer, but because I needed you to stop giving her the last word. "You didn't lie," I said. "You hoped." She nodded. "Same thing sometimes." I stirred the coffee. I didn't want coffee, I just needed something to do with my hands. "I was angry when you left," I admitted. "Furious. I thought you ghosted me. I wanted to, but I couldn't. I kept your contact saved in 4 places. I reread our last message every night before I deleted it. And then I'd write a new one. And delete that too. So why now?" "Because I realized disappearing doesn't make the feelings go away. And you deserved the truth." "The truth?" I wasn't even sure what that word meant anymore. I had been surrounded by half-truths for so long, Susan's version of love, Daniel's version of support, even my own self-denial, but here, now, across from someone who expected nothing but honesty, I felt naked. "I didn't expect you to come back," I said. "I didn't expect you to come find me." We both smiled at the same time. And then I said something that had lived in my chest for months. "She wrote a book." Maria nodded. "I know. She signed a deal for a podcast too. She will. She's building an empire from my collapse. She is." I waited. But Maria didn't offer comfort. She offered truth. "You can't stop her," she said, "but you can stop giving her the power to ruin you every time she succeeds." "I don't hate her," I whispered. "That's the worst part." I laughed quietly. "Yeah." We sat there for another hour, just sat. Then she stood. "I should go." I rose with her. "Will I see you again?" "That's up to you." And just like that, she was gone. Not vanished, just temporarily out of frame. I went home and did something I had avoided for months. I watched Susan's full interview. The one that had gone viral, the one I had only seen in clips and secondhand posts. She sat on a white couch, bathed in warm studio lighting, a box of tissues within arm's reach. "He left me," she said, eyes wet. "After everything, after all the love, he just walked away." "Why do you think he did that?" the host asked. I think he never forgave me for needing the spotlight, for using his pain as my narrative, and maybe he's right, but I never stopped loving him." My hands didn't shake, my throat didn't close, I just watched. When it ended, I opened a blank document on my laptop. Title, ICU, what it meant to be the one left behind while still alive. And I wrote, not to publish, not to pitch, just to write. I poured out everything, the tubes, the silence, the betrayal, the nurse who saw me, the woman who held my pain without photographing it. I wrote about Maria's almond eyes and her steady hands, about Susan's curated tears and empty goodbyes, about Daniel's grinning betrayal. About my own silence and how it was mistaken for weakness when it was actually survival. I wrote until sunrise, and then I closed the laptop and finally slept. The next morning, I got a call from a producer. Not Susan's, not Daniel's, someone new. They had read a leaked sample of my story, an early draft I had once sent to a friend for feedback. "We want to option this," she said. "The real version, the one that isn't polished, it's raw, it's painful, it's yours." I told her no. She asked why. "Because the story isn't finished." And then, a week later, I receive a letter. Not a text, not an email, an actual letter. Handwritten, pages folded neatly, the paper smelled like jasmine, it was from Susan. She had found my new address, I wasn't surprised. Inside were 6 pages. The first 5 were apologies. Long, bloated, desperate. She wrote about Daniel, about the fallout, about loneliness, about the hate she received online from those who saw through her, about the brand deals that dried up, about the silence she had drowned in once the camera stopped rolling. She asked nothing of me, not love, not friendship, not even acknowledgement. She just said she was sorry. And then the 6th page, a photo. It was me, on the hospital bed, eyes open, looking at Maria. A smile I didn't know I had formed, small, soft, real. Susan had taken the photo. She wrote on the back. "This was the moment I knew I had lost you." I sat with that for a long time. Then I burned it. Not in anger. In peace. Later that evening, I stood outside Maria's apartment building. She opened the door before I knocked. "I saw you on the camera," she said, pulling her coat tighter. "Took you long enough." I held up 2 coffee cups. "Peace offering." She opened the door wider. "You know I like tea." I panicked. We laughed. And inside, for the first time since the ICU, I felt like I was breathing without effort. She sat on the couch, I sat beside her. Neither of us leaned in, neither of us pulled away. We just were. At some point, she reached for my hand. It wasn't electric, it wasn't dramatic, it was simple. Humans. warm. And that was enough. I looked at her and said, I don't want to be anyone's brand, I don't want a story, I just want. I know, she said. And maybe she did. The realization wasn't that Susan had betrayed me, it was that I had betrayed myself, by letting the world dictate my worth through someone else's lens. That ended now, right here, right beside Maria. Not with a big speech, not with a new title, just a hand held under quiet light, and a future that didn't need filters to be real. A month passed, no press, no updates, no public moves from me. It drove people crazy. Susan's final video was posted weeks ago, 3 minutes of soft music and a voiceover about letting go of a love that taught her how to hurt. The comments were mixed, some still defended her, others began to ask questions. I didn't reply to any of them. I waited. Let her think I had gone quiet for good. Let Daniel believe he'd been forgotten. Let the world believe I was finished. Then, quietly, I published the book. Not through a big-name publisher, through an academic imprint. A cold, clean title, The ICU Experiment, a study on digital performance, manipulation, and psychological consent. The cover wasn't pink, it was white, a single hospital wristband in the center. My name, Harry Langs, Ton. Printed below it in stark serif font. I didn't promote it, didn't tour, didn't send review copies. But it spread anyway. Because it wasn't just a memoir. It was a documented case study, real screenshots, anonymized data, time-stamped livestream breakdowns. I used no names, but readers knew. The book hit academic shelves first, then journalism students picked it up. Then think pieces emerged on media ethics blogs. And then one headline changed everything. Harvard professor unmasks influencer manipulation in viral ICU love story. That was me. The quiet guy. The one they dismissed. The one who smiled in silence and didn't fight back. I fought now. With words. In peace. Later that evening, I stood outside Maria's apartment building. She opened the door before I knocked. I saw you on the camera, she said, pulling her coat tighter. Took you long enough. I held up 2 coffee cups. Peace offering. She opened the door wider. You know I like tea. I panicked. We laughed. And inside, for the first time since the ICU, I felt like I was breathing without effort. She sat on the couch, I sat beside her. Neither of us leaned in, neither of us pulled away. We just were. At some point, she reached for my hand. It wasn't electric, it wasn't dramatic, it was simple. Humans. Warm. And that was enough. I looked at her and said, I don't want to be anyone's brand, I don't want a story, I just want. I know, she said. And maybe she did. The realization wasn't that Susan had betrayed me, it was that I had betrayed myself, by letting the world dictate my worth through someone else's lens. That ended now, right here, right beside Maria. Not with a big speech, not with a new title, just a hand held under quiet light, and a future that didn't need filters to be real. A month passed, no press, no updates, no public moves from me. It drove people crazy. Susan's final video was posted weeks ago, 3 minutes of soft music and a voiceover about letting go of a love that taught her how to hurt. The comments were mixed, some still defended her, others began to ask questions. I didn't reply to any of them. I waited. Let her think I had gone quiet for good. Let Daniel believe he'd been forgotten. Let the world believe I was finished. Then, quietly, I published the book. Not through a big-name publisher, through an academic imprint. A cold, clean title, The ICU Experiment, a study on digital performance, manipulation, and psychological consent. The cover wasn't pink, it was white, a single hospital wristband in the center. My name, Harry Langs, Ton. Printed below it in stark serif font. I didn't promote it, didn't tour, didn't send review copies. But it spread anyway. Because it wasn't just a memoir. It was a documented case study, real screenshots, anonymized data, time-stamped livestream breakdowns. I used no names, but readers knew. The book hit academic shelves first, then journalism students picked it up. Then think pieces emerged on media ethics blogs. And then one headline changed everything. Harvard professor unmasks influencer manipulation in viral ICU love story. That was me. The quiet guy. The one they dismissed. The one who smiled in silence and didn't fight back. I fought now. With words. Susan emailed me one last time, just one line. You win. I never replied, because it wasn't about winning, it was about ending. With clarity, with dignity, with silence that didn't hurt anymore, and in the final scene of it all, I sat on a bench outside my new university office. The sky was clear. Maria walked over, 2 coffees in hand. You still don't drink coffee, she teased. Habit. You're terrible at habits. Except one. Oh? Choosing better. We sat. A student passed us, staring, hesitating. You're Harry Langston, right? She asked shyly. Yes. I read your book, my mom made me, said it was the first time someone explained what dignity looks like. I smiled. Tell her I said thank you. She ran off. Maria raised her cup. To dignity, she said. To get revenge, I replied, and we clinked our paper cups in the quiet, beautiful ending I never thought I'd earn.